when we went to these global systems, I think we're all seeing now, and there is that hunger to reconnect. We were disconnected from the places where food, clothing, and shelter come from. The processes, those critically important, timeless skills.
That's Jeanne Carver. I'm Cara Duffy, and this is the Powerful Ladies Podcast.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It was a very big surprise, and thank you for including me.
Yeah, of course. Well, let's dive right in and tell everyone your name, where you are in the world, and what you're up to.
What I'm up to. My name is Jeanne Carver, and I'm sitting at our ranch headquarters of our family ranch in North Central Oregon, which is Oregon's interior high desert. So I'm at our family ranch, which is Imperial Stock Ranch. This is our 152nd year of continuous operation. But it's also the location from which I operate my newer business, which is Shaniko Wool Company, which is what keeps me very busy today. And it basically is scaling what I've done with our own ranch to include other ranches in the Western U.S. to support U.S. wool and textile manufacturing.
How did you decide that that's what you were going to take on? Because it's no small feat.
Oh, I didn't decide. I didn't decide it. And I read a little of your background. You were in the apparel and shoe industry specifically, perhaps.
Yes.
And I thought, wow, then you understand some of what seemingly are insurmountable challenges that I've been up against for the last almost 25 years. So it's not like I chose to do what I'm doing today. I think your life takes various twists and turns, your journey, each one of us. And for me, I was in my own other career when I met and married my husband, which brought me home to my roots. And so when you do that and commit your life to sharing with another person, sometimes doors open you didn't expect, or jobs come that you never planned or prepared for. And that is exactly what happened. For a decade, we were just focused on the management of natural resources. And I was, his partner in that in any way possible. And then in 1999, we made a phone call that would change our life. The first of about 3 phone calls that would change our life. And it was in 1999, after shearing, that we called our longtime wool buyer. We had been selling the wool from this ranch for 100 years to that company. And we called to say, we're ready to haul the wool. What's the price this year? What will we get? Because in agriculture, you're a price taker, typically not a price maker. And the answer was, we're really sorry, folks, but we're not buying. We're closing our processing and going offshore like everyone else. And it was a stunning answer to a simple question, right? It
Sure.
was the day that offshoring arrived on our doorstep that day, unannounced. And it left you, completely shocked as to what your future would be. And so that is the incident that led to what I'm doing today.
Obviously, when something that shocking crosses your path, there's lots of different ways that people handle it. They could accept it. They could surrender to it. You chose the third option, which is we're going to figure it out. And where does that tenacity come from?
Well, we have a lot of topics to cover today, I think. Where does that come from? From the time I was a little girl, I was outside. I was always outside, begging my parents for horses, first of all, until they finally succumbed and I got horses. But I was an outdoor tomboy, very loved the physical and the outdoor world, and became an athlete in college, Division I athlete. And actually, I was a hurdler. So if that doesn't tell you something about obstacles, I would run the I would run I was the lead off for our collegiate team in the 4x4 relay, but my main event was 400-meter hurdles. And it's like, for me, I almost could run the 400-meter hurdles as fast as I could run an open 400-meter on the flat, on the relay. It's because I'm really motivated by those obstacles. Each one just propels you to the next. And so what prepared me for this? Several things. Probably that fact. I'm very competitive, fiercely competitive, love obstacles or challenges. And my upbringing, my parents always said, as maybe all parents do, you can do anything you want to in life. You don't let anyone tell you can't. You can achieve anything you want to do. And so one of the things was I love the land. And my husband said, if we don't find our own markets for what the sheep provide, they will be gone off this landscape. How do you tell? There's a host of things here, Kara. How do you tell the creator that what they've given us doesn't matter anymore? How do you say that? We watched 26,000 sheep producers in the US go out of the sheep business between just 96 and 2000, that 4-year period, because a lot due to this loss of textile infrastructure and the move to offshoring. And, how do you just watch this happen when you know that wool is a miracle fiber that has been the core of humankind's textiles for more than 10,000 years? So my husband said, either find a way or sheep will be gone. And so the greatest asset I had was that I didn't know I couldn't do it. I didn't know that I couldn't do it, right? And so you simply begin. And I began the journey, and here we are, 24 years later.
What are you most proud of along that journey specifically?
Well, I'm most proud of the fact that no one's been able to make me quit. Yep. So there you go. No one can make me quit. It's not that I know anything. It's that I persevere, and my life in athletics and then later mountaineering has taught me the significance of focusing on the work in front of you. Focus on the work in front of you and just give it hard, honest effort. And if that propels you to the next phase, the next step, what a great motivator. And I think that's true for all of us. If we simply begin a work on what's in front of us, each small victory propels you forward. And it's not like I had a plan or a goal or a vision. I didn't even have a business plan. I didn't have a business plan actually for about 12 years down this road before I actually started to develop a business plan. First of all, I didn't know what one was. So I didn't know I needed one. So you just begin. And I think what I'm proudest of is that we're still going. We're still standing, as the saying is, and carrying forward. And we have not been defeated. So as long as I'm not completely defeated, I will carry forward.
Well, I love that you're an example of why we don't need business plans. I fight with my clients on a regular basis about not needing the plan, but needing to do the work and needing to keep, exploring what the next possibility is. So I love that it took you 12 years to have one. How has stepping into this leadership space within this community, how has it shown you what America is made of, and how has it shown you more about the power of community?
Well, I wouldn't be where I am today without the help and support of a whole lot of people. And I start with my husband, who is now gone, but the greatest fan of my work, the greatest supporter of my work as a partner, and a very good businessman that I watched and learned from. I had to answer to him, right? And so if I could answer to him, then we were going to be okay, right? And so that's number one. It starts there, close to home. But I reached first, just as we had in the management of the agricultural operation, we reached in the 80s to local agency partners, our Soil and Water Conservation District, Natural Resource Conservation Service, to help us with a management plan with the health of natural resources as the focus. And that led us forward on our journey in sustainability, conservation first, sustainability next, and then today, regenerative work in agriculture. Just as we were doing with that, I reached locally to the fiber artisans, textile artisans near me, who I accidentally became aware of. It wasn't my field. But I remember walking into a gallery when I was delivering lamb to the back door of the kitchens in Bend, Oregon, which is our closest market. And I walked by a gallery and I saw these beautiful textiles hanging on display, and it was like a magnet. And I walked in and I saw this gorgeous artwork out of fiber, looked at the tag, wrote down the name, found her and called her the next day, explained who I was. I was very early in my journey. This was like 2000. I just barely had yarns figured out from the wool. I had something clean from the greasy wool and something saleable. I didn't know how I was going to sell it or if anybody would care or buy it. But I saw that and I called her. I told my story and I said, would you like to work with these beautiful Oregon sunlight yarns? This was a sunlight harvest. This is the magic of soil and seeds and grasslands and sunlight, and then grazing animals like sheep biting those plants, stimulating the root development, seed production, revitalizing landscapes when they're grazing in a well-managed program, right? And they convert that vegetable matter, that sunlight energy in a plant, to other usable forms of protein that have given us life for thousands of years. Food, clothing, and shelter are all from that one animal who asks us for nothing. So that wool is converted sunlight energy. I said to this woman, would you like to work with Oregon Sunlight Yarns? And she said, oh, absolutely. And she was the beginning, and she brought another and another. And pretty soon I had 20 women, primarily women, textile artisans within 120 miles of our ranch who were weaving, felting, spinning, knitting, crochet. We even had the sewing, right? The cut and sew of the fabrics, building us. And so those women taught me, they mentored me. We had so much fun together. I just saw them a week ago. I was the keynote speaker at a weaving conference, 600 attendees. I gave the keynote address, and many of them were in the room, and they were all part of what I've done. And I brought them all with me that evening, and it was so wonderful to see them, stand at the end of that presentation and honor the work we've done collectively. But see, then they helped me move on out to those textile manufacturing partners left in the United States, the spinning companies, the dyers, the weavers, the knitters, the cut and sew. These are people who have reinvented themselves again and again and supported my effort for 24 years in any way they could and made me stronger and made this possible. So together, without them, I'm nothing. I have greasy wool. Nobody wants that. And what I've been able to do is bring scaled projects to them that helps them survive. So we are stronger together than we are individually. It's a lesson in how collaboratively we're greater than we are alone.
Well, it's a great lesson also in that collaboration is required to revitalize local economies. That's
right.
I think we get I think for some people, we get a little romanticized about globalization, and other people, it's less romantic and maybe more on the just strictly capitalism side of things. But I think that we forget what the American dream real elements included, and it was being able to work and live and have community all within an area that was manageable. Like, we didn't have to go far to do it. being able to do your craft and your work and whatever that looks like, and throughout the day interact with other people in your neighborhood or town or area, because I think especially after what we've been going through the past couple of years, like there's that craving of having real life interactions and being able to engage with people in a local element that feels like you're creating something. And in addition to creating something together, you're really able to support each other as well. Like, being able to do simple things like who has milk, or who can watch the kids, or who wants to come over for a barbecue. Like, we need that community at different levels. And I think that there's a lot of missing in that today based on how life has been changing and going so virtual.
Yes. This is a great example of the whole. Mm-hmm. So everywhere around the planet, we used to have local regional systems for food, clothing, and shelter. That's our survival. We all need, I don't care where you are on the planet, food, clothing, and shelter to survive, plus water. And those used to come all around the world. These are timeless activities. What I do is very timeless. I'm not a trend, I'm not that informed, right? I've been engaged in what has been happening for humankind for forever. And when we evolved, if that's the correct term, to becoming more specialized, and then of course in a free market system like we live in, which has many blessings, companies saw that they could go elsewhere and get things made more cheaply with cheaper goods and make more profit. And that's, kudos to them. But it's taken decades for everyone to begin to see the destruction that this has contributed to of our health, our communities, our countries, our cultures, and the planet. Start close and just take it out. And so when we went to these global systems, I think we're all seeing now, and there is that hunger to reconnect. We were disconnected from the places where food, clothing, and shelter come from. The processes, those critically important, timeless skills that my local artisans reconnected me to. I didn't know anything about spinning and weaving and knitting, and I knew a little bit about sewing from my mother, but truly, I didn't understand the importance of traditional skills that are as critical today as they have ever been. Mm-hmm. And I realized that they're also important to this country. They're important to every country, mm-hmm. So we disconnected from the places, the people, the processes, and the people. And here we go today with all these issues in these mm-hmm. factories with labor conditions and pay and safety and all of the factors that there are when things become anonymous. We get disconnected, and it's someplace far away. We don't know, people we don't know. So that connection to place turns out is critically important, because place, that connection is also the inspiration for stewardship. So no wonder we've driven our planet to the status that we're in today, is because we did not remain connected in a way that was critically important. So this work I'm doing today is the greatest work I've ever done. And particularly even the last step, which we haven't talked about, my measurement initiative, which is actually quantifying the actual ecosystem and climate impacts of our ranches that are part of Shaniko Wool Company, so that we truly know what our impact is. And again, all those little marks in our journeys, knowing this information is the greatest motivator to do even better.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love that. And I think that there is an unfortunate and most likely inaccurate idea that people who are in the agricultural ranching communities aren't aware of what's happening to the planet. And it's like just bonkers, because you're seeing it every day, right? And the conversations that don't sound very sexy, but like, we have to talk about soil. We have to talk about water. We have to talk about these core fundamentals that to your point, every system on this planet is dependent on. So I love seeing things that are changing that narrative and being like, no, like everyone's aware of what is and isn't working anymore. And I love that you're bringing people together to fix it and measure it and talk about it.
Yeah, I like that you used the word sexy. This is a fun part of my journey. So in 1999, here I was on this historic ranch, and we were going about our life ranching. That's what we did. Focus on health of natural resources, the recognition we are temporary stewards. We're just here for a short time, and then we're gone. There's something much greater than us in the world. And that natural resources are these gifts of creation. And so we were doing our thing, and then 99 happened, and then we had to find a new way to sell a harvest in order to continue caring for this landscape. And then that journey started me down this road on all these other lessons. But, you know, we have celebrated chefs, we have winemakers, cheese makers. We start getting these attachments back to place, local farmers markets that had a huge evolution the last 25 years. And people first paid attention to this in food because that's what we put in our body. But now, 25, 30, 40 years later, the fashion and textile industry is getting involved in the way that the food people did 30, 40 years ago, right? So I would tell these guys inside the spinning mills in this country, those guys that are left, don't you know you're the new sexy? And they would look at me like I'm crazy. But I'm like, you're the forgotten makers, because you're not spinning on a wheel by yourself. But, you know, we are losing these critical skills of carding wool. That once you clean it and comb it, that is a really critical step. And without well carded, combed wool, you don't get a good yarn. But who today in the general public understands what an important skill that is? And so I would tell them, you know, just like I was delivering lamb to chefs who were nose to tail butchers and they were rock stars, I'm trying to tell the mill guys and textiles that they're the same thing. They weren't really buying it, but you're mentioning it because it is the new sexy. And I love it that now you've taken that to agriculture. So here is the sexy story in agriculture. We were doing our work. We lost a market. We started bringing it to fashion companies. You know, the most celebrated partner I've had, you asked me what our greatest accomplishments are earlier. You know, for me, it's that we're still going and we're not, you know, we didn't fail yet completely. But, you know, Ralph Lauren found me 13 years down that journey during the 2012 London Olympics. There was an uproar over the Chinese-made Olympic uniforms, and they began looking for partners in the U.S. to investigate, well, can we make them in the U.S. completely, and with whom? And so I became one of those partners, and then they made a film, told our story ahead of the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi. And you see, when they called me, that's the second call that changed our life, because a brand like that has the power to influence others. Nobody was listening to me. For 13 years, I would say to Dan, I wish somebody would come down this dirt road and see who we are and what we're doing and why it matters. But nobody's going to hear my voice, right? I'm a voice from the wilderness, right? When Ralph Lauren says they found us, this beautiful wool in these gorgeous uniforms that they design, and they tell your story, other people listen. And so then more people came, and it truly did change our life. What I'm doing today is that new sexy in agriculture, because for all this time we had our observations. Are we doing better, or is the land showing us we're doing a poorer job? We had our observations, which are pretty legitimate. We also had our yield data, which tells you if the soil is giving us a better harvest or not, and the grasslands. We had species counts because we work closely with our agency partners, elk population, deer, antelope, upland game birds, fish, salmon. perhaps the greatest indicator species of the health of the whole system. Okay. We had those, and we had agency testimony. And then, which we haven't talked about yet, we became involved in what today is the leading third-party audited global standard for sheep and wool production. And our family ranch became the first ranch in the world certified when it launched in 2016. And that was because of the third call I got, which was Patagonia, who asked us to be third-party audited for our land and animal care. And so we went down that road at their request and then became the first ranch in the world audited. Today, Shaniko Wool Company is a scaled supply of wool produced here in the Western U.S. that meets the responsible wool standard. And as of last summer, we're also certified to Nativa Regenerative. So that all of that was, none of that was good enough. For some people who are not involved in agriculture, they believe that those of us in agriculture destroy the soil, pollute our waters, and put methane in the atmosphere, and we're just bad characters. But the truth of the matter is, a brand questioned me straight out in the winter of 19 about the land impacts of our ranching operations. And it was the motivation I needed to go to the next step. And so I found the science team led by Dr. John Talbot. Today we have 5 PhD scientists on our team, range scientists and soil scientists. And I said, I want to know the net impact of our ranching operations on an annual basis. And I want to know if we are a net polluter, if you will, or if at the end of the year, we bank a positive environmental value for nature. And so we are now 3.5 years into that measurement initiative, which has got all kinds of layers of oversight and credibility. Mm-hmm. But here's the answer. And we never knew this. Today, I know something we never knew. I only wish that my husband had lived to see this, because it confirms everything he believed and everything he worked to deliver, and that our oldest son is carrying on today. And that is that each year in this high desert environment, where we get less than 8 inches of rainfall a year, every drop is precious. We deliver beef, lamb, and wool in support of humankind every year. But for the last 3 years, we also put in the bank 60,000 tons of carbon into our soils net each year, while delivering those harvests for us to be clothed and to be provided a sustenance. 60,000 tons a year in the last 3 years on our 32,000 acres of land. And that means we draw down more than 218,000 tons of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. And our GHG, our greenhouse gas emissions, is a net negative value. We are positive for nature each year as a family ranching operation while providing food, clothing, and shelter. This is a story that up to now has not been measured. We get no credit for it. No one knows it, including us, except through our gut feeling, right? Mm-hmm. But it's the greatest work I've ever done. And I'm so excited. We're moving this across all the ranches in Shaniko Wool so that we all have that new tool to even motivate us to even greater work and in what we do in family ranching.
No, well, I love that. And I want that standard for every type of business, because, why wouldn't you? We spend so much time looking at profit margins or GDP, and it's like, yeah, but what are we making this better for future generations? Yes or no? Are we helping or are we hurting? And I think it's so interesting to see where that measurement tool is going to go. Like, my mind's already going into, okay, how can you help people who beyond wool use this tool? How can your entire county use this tool? How can this whole state of Oregon use the tool? How can we keep expanding it? Because it does, like, data changes everything. This is why I love spreadsheets, as much as I love the creative process. Because when you see the truth, all you can decide is, are we going to fix it or are we going to lean in because it's working? And now that you know it's working, you're like, okay, we're going to lean in. And not only are we going to lean in, we're going to share it. There's so many unfortunate stories of people in the farming and ranching spaces where it feels like they're never winning. And for a farm and a ranch to have this measurement, to know that here's a way we are winning, and this is a very sexy metric. This is going to give people something to talk about.
Well, in agriculture, the thing is you work to break even. You work to break even, and our input costs continue to go up, labor and fuel and all the things that it takes, seed, input costs go up. And when you sell your harvest, nobody wants to pay more. I mean, you want it from 5 years ago. There's such a pressure in the commodity markets to keep the price low. That doesn't show up at the grocery store, but it's the people after the producer that's making those margins. So we have now a new commodity. If you have a measured, verified, with all those oversights and checks, and you are registered on the leading carbon registries, you now have an opportunity for a new income stream if you are delivering it and if you meet certain criteria, which we are meeting. So I'm happy to say that our son has a contract for a new harvest. He's the second year in. This is a brand new income stream for doing great work on the land, feeding and clothing ourselves and our neighbors and the human population. But this is a game changer for family agriculture. And this model is replicable everywhere and scalable. And so I'm in the process. We are working our way through some of the final hurdles, obstacles back to my life. And I am like a dog on a bone. I am not letting go. My goal today, my vision, is to deliver a new income stream to every rancher in Shaniko Wool Company. And once we have that done, for anyone that wants my help to move this out, I am here.
Well, where my mind goes automatically, as from thinking from a consumer perspective, it's like, great, like, who has this certification? Where's the online store where I can only buy products with this online certification? Because it would just, like, it would make my life easier to know, like, this is the official certified online store that you can get it from. Because you're so right about, not only does the local economy create a stronger, healthier local community, but direct to consumer small businesses also allows there to be more profit sharing across the way, versus it switches it from commodity to a resource people want, and the person who wants it the most is getting it directly. And it shifts how everyone can do business. Like, middlemen aren't bad, but middlemen add layers of complication and cost, and they don't always know the full story to tell, right? If you're selling something made with your wool directly to a person, you're going to tell the richness of the story, and suddenly the whole value conversation shifts. Whereas for someone else, it's like, here's another sweater, bye. And you're like, that's it? Well, I don't know if I want to spend more, because all you told me was it's another blue sweater next to a much cheaper blue sweater.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting question. So I have to kind of back up and give you my journey, and then I need to ask a clarifying question. But, when I began this in 99, I did convert it to something saleable and developed products. So in 2000, I put my first yarns in the market. By 2005, I was making finished goods using local artisans, putting them in the market. By 2000, actually by 5, I had a contract with a national clothing retailer, and we were selling through their national catalog distribution. And it just evolved by 2015, I had yarns branded with our ranch name in between 400 and 500 stores in America. People, and so they got directly to me, directly to us, directly, they touched us, right?
Mm-hmm.
All these thousands and thousands and thousands of home crafters using yarn from us, right? It was great. We also had boutique apparel in stores and home fashions. And in fact, I was working with some major brands on home textiles and selling yarn to companies like Ralph Lauren and J. Crew, who made the sweaters to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But in that process, Kara, my husband had developed an incurable regenerative disease, and he was declining health-wise. So by the time Patagonia called me in 2015, it was becoming very evident that I needed to start pulling back and focus on his care. Now, I know this podcast is about women, and this is a story that many women could tell over and over. What I had to do was sell that business, which wasn't a business to me. It was never a business. It was my heart. It was our life. I was selling a piece of our life to people, right? But I had to completely shift to becoming a full-time caregiver. And I did that, selling off that business, which was a product business, to focus on Dan's care until his death 2 years ago. Now, before he passed away, I launched Shaniko Wool Company. And why I did that was the brands kept calling and people for this traceable, sustainably produced wool that only we had because we were the only ones certified. So I did make the move to a new business in Shaniko Wool Company in 2018 to scale the supply of wool that meets the leading global standards for land care, animal care, and worker welfare. It's a one welfare standard. In fact, the Responsible Wool Standard has more than 270 criteria for land care, animal welfare, and worker welfare in it. So when I brought Shaniko Wool, it's a new model. It was to bring a scaled supply of the wool for those who wanted to make products here in the US and wanted this quality of wool supply to start with. I couldn't make the products because I still had Dan to care for, and I could take him with me and visit the ranches and get us through certification and then move that wool into the supply chain. So if you would like me to tell you, I can tell you where some of Shaniko Wool is today, but I'm not looking at this as an advertising platform. So you tell me, do you want me to talk about some of the companies using Shaniko Wool?
Yeah, I think that would be great for everyone to hear. But I think also, I'm just thinking about how companies like 3M or Vibram outsoles have done such a great job of requiring their partners to carry their hang tag and their label and to be co-branded. So it's giving customers those big companies are marketing directly to the end user and creating this training where they're like, okay, if there's that symbol, it's good quality. If there's that symbol, it really is waterproof. And for one of my other businesses, we were talking to Sequal, which is a material made from recycled plastic taken from the ocean. And in order to even get access to them, you have to fill out a form, and you have to get like certified, and there's all these steps to make sure that you're allowed to carry the label, because you have to carry the label with their things. And so I think I'm just hungry for a PR initiative where like American people are being trained that if they see this responsible standard and if they see your brand name, they know like that's a safe choice, because we're at a time right now where it's so overwhelming to make good choices. We know that there are so many businesses and companies making the right choices, and we want to rely on standards and people doing the work to tell us, can we eat this? Can we wear it? Is it okay? That we need these certifications. And anytime there is a powerful certification like you've created, I'm like, thank you. You just made my life easier. I don't need to do the research. I don't need to hunt down the rancher. I can just know that label says it's okay for me it's a guilt-free purchase, if not knowing that I'm contributing to things that are adding value all along the way. So that's really what I want, is like, how do we just make sure more people know?
Yeah, there are companies. Unfortunately, I'm not like you know my history now. I was a ranch wife in the middle of nowhere. I'm not a branding marketing genius, right? And ranchers have a hard time budgeting marketing dollars or to create, so we're not there, but maybe we're on our way, that when people see Shaniko on the label or an RWS, when they see Nativa Regen Shaniko, they know it meets the RWS. It comes from this group of ranches in the United States, and it meets these little certifications. So we are getting there. There are some, but you know how long it takes with your background. You know it takes a long time to move it through and make these large brands make the shift to get it. So we're working with some, and it's going to come forward, but it's a little early. But there's, in the craft sector, for those who craft at home, we've had some really great moves here. One of our leading spinning mills in the United States is called Meridian. Meridian Mill House has their own yarns, and they carry a lot of Shaniko on their website. So when you go to Meridian Mill House and you Google or search Shaniko, you're going to have a whole variety of options in fiber for spinners, in yarns for knitters. There's also a very successful yarn company, sells at a site called knitpicks.com. They had never had an American yarn until COVID. Everything they sold was imported. And during COVID, they wanted to do something special. They reached to me, and they've developed this is such a great story, their first American yarn. And I introduced them to the spinning mills. So Meridian is spinning it for them, but it's their own high desert yarns at knitpicks.com. It's all Shaniko with all kinds of pattern support. And those are some of the people that have really stepped in and made a commitment to this RWS wool. Mm-hmm. And then we have a young designer in Los Angeles who was a luxury hat maker. That's what she's known for. She discovered us and said, I want to do knitwear. So you can find sweaters and accessories by JanessaLeone.com. Her incredible regenerative program. She's been here to the ranch, filmed, made, done photo shoots. She is using Shaniko wool, and there will be more coming. There's a lot of young startups that I am matchmaking. I'm a matchmaker to U.S. textile supply chains to be able to make their dream come alive with our wool as the base, but tell their own story. And then we have a great sock manufacturer in this country called Defeat, Defeet. Defeat has shifted all wool sourcing to Shaniko. And they have, and these manufacturing partners have all gone through RWS certification too. So there is no doubt that wool came from our ranches, and it's been audited every step of the way. No blending, no mixing, 100% guarantee. That authenticity and that confidence and trust is there from those people. And of course, I think Ralph Lauren is knitting some sweaters right now with Shaniko wool, which I'm not sure when they're going to launch those, but I know that they have been, coming to us at least each of the last Winter Olympics. And I think they had some yarn that they're using right now in some sweaters. So, but as more people come online, it'll be on our socials like Instagram and Facebook and so on, as more companies launch that I really can't talk about because it's their story. It's their story to tell. Yeah.
Well, you're such a passionate and heart-led human, and that makes me really want to know, when you think of the phrase powerful ladies, like, what does it mean to you, and what is being powerful? How would you define that?
Well, how would I define that? I think basically, whether you're a man or a woman, we're all ultimately alone. When it comes down to the human existence and condition, we need each other, and it makes our life richer. But ultimately, we're all alone, and we have to find our own path toward being comfortable with that. Facing things, finding your way to peace and contentment, regardless of our circumstances or our challenges. Facing the things that are fearful to us and walking through them can give us a confidence, which I guess you could perceive as being powerful. But, having control and influence, if there's anything we're going to do, it's for me, I can speak for me. I don't have a desire to have control or influence over anyone else. I do have a desire to have some control and influence over my own life. And when things come along that impacts business as usual, like when we couldn't sell wool, you have a ranch that's 130 years in existence, always selling wool, very proud of the quality of wool that you breed for and care for and deliver. And all of a sudden, nobody wants it. It takes, you lose control. You have no control of that. And so for me, I wanted to find a way to fix it. And I think my previous life experiences gave me the confidence to attempt it. So I mentioned having been an athlete, you learn a lot about challenges through athletics. For one, for me, you learn that we have no idea what we're really capable of. I think when you are in training and you push the body to failure, truly to failure, it's great lessons in how our mind limited us. Our mind did not realize what the physical human body was capable of. And if you train at those levels, it teaches you a great deal about what we're capable of that we didn't even know. And following my athletic experiences, I got very, very involved in mountaineering because I've always loved the wilderness. And I had never lived in a town until I went to college. So I was always remote and rural, my life experience. So I'm grounded in nature and comfort with nature. Mm-hmm. And in my mountaineering experiences, I had an incident that was life-changing once in a chute on a mountain trying to make an ascent. And another climber fell. And it was a very bad situation. And it was so frightening that I became paralyzed in place on a mountain. I couldn't go down. I couldn't go up. I couldn't go anywhere. And it was fear. Fear completely made me immobile. And you can take this parallel lots of places in life. But there were some climbing guides that reached me and talked to me. And then they were going to go ahead and ascend to make the summit. And I was so afraid, and I didn't want to be alone. Then instead of going down, I went with them and went up. And it was a lesson that I was perfectly capable of physically making that summit. And yet my mind had me paralyzed. And it showed me very tangibly how our minds control our lives. So I guess when I think about the term powerful women, it means taking from our life experiences and walking through ones we may currently be in or that we may find ourselves in the future, just like my husband's health. I wasn't prepared to be a caregiver. There's nothing in my life had prepared me to be a caregiver. Quite the opposite. Self-reliant, independent, didn't have the patience for what was required in caregiving, clear to the end. But you walk through it, and those lessons give us the confidence and the strength to carry on in whatever situation we find ourselves in. So for me, powerful women are those who have learned through our life experiences and are capable of finding our way to peace and contentment and helping control what's in our own life, so that our life is richer regardless of where we find ourselves.
Love that. We are into our kind of speed round of questions to wrap up for the day.
Yeah.
And you've had so many gems that I'm already in my mind being like, that'd be a great teaser quote. That'd be a great one. But there's just been such richness to this conversation. So thank you. We ask everyone on the podcast where they put themselves on our powerful lady scale. If 0 is everyday human and 10 is the most powerful lady you can imagine, where would you score yourself today and on an average day?
Really, I'm not very good at scoring. Say that again. I have to give you a number.
Yeah, between 0 and 10. If 0 is an average everyday human and 10 is the most powerful lady you can imagine, where would you rank yourself?
I think of myself as it's going to sound, I'm going to use the 0. And I say that because I live in nature every day of my life. And if there's anything that life has taught me, it's, and I don't want this to be misinterpreted wrong, but, we are temporary, and nature teaches you about our insignificance. And so I would hope to think that I'm very humble and that I appreciate what I've been given. And I hope that I will make the best of every opportunity presented to me to give it all the effort I have, honestly, authentically, and always carry my load. But I don't tend to think of myself as a powerful woman. I just simply get it done. You give me a job, I'll get it done. And I will thank God for the opportunity and be grateful for what I've been given.
We've been asking everyone kind of what you need, what's on your wish list, what's on your manifest list, how can we help you? This is a powerful, connected community. So we're asking you, how can we help? What do you need?
What do I need? I need companies to buy Shaniko Wool. I need them to commit to U.S. fibers and hopefully U.S. manufacturing. And I don't know how the audience listening, unless there's someone in the fashion industry that didn't know about us, somebody inside one of these companies, it's, how they change companies. People come and go. You start a relationship, you work it forward. I had a relationship with a very major sports brand, a woman who was the director of their global sourcing in one product category, made multiple trips here, had made product samples, was getting ready to move us to launch. COVID hit, she lost her job. The whole thing disappears. You start over. It's really challenging to overcome the offshoring in fashion and textiles. Very hard. And what we need is scaled programs, not just every startup, although I need them and I love them and they make a difference, but you spend so much effort to sell 200 pounds of wool compared to 20,000 pounds or 200,000 pounds at a time. Yep. So, following us on our socials, helping us get the attention of people who can make decisions to say yes to wool and yes to the U.S. product is huge. It's my greatest challenge. It's the mountain. I can't even see the summit yet. Yep. I'm not even nowhere near the top. I can't even see the summit, but I'm still climbing.
And for everybody who wants to reach out to you, support you, follow you, buy from you, where can they find all those places?
Well, you can go to Shaniko Wool Company and follow all our socials. But like I said, I'm not a product company today. So through our socials, you'll learn about the brands who are using us and the companies and the few I mentioned. So, supporting those companies is really terrific and helps us because they'll reorder. And as they reorder and grow, then that secures the future of our family ranches who are part of this current Shaniko Wool effort and growing, and those ranches who want to join us, which they will as we grow in the amount of wool that we sell.
Well,
So
thank you so much for taking your time today to be with us. I am so grateful that you are taking this on and leading the charge in this space. Know that you are not alone and we are championing you. And it's just, yeah, I love getting to meet women like you who are all in on doing what you know you have been called to do, if not love to do. And you're making a really big difference in a really big way. So just thank you. Thank you for doing all that hard work and for being the champion that you are.
well, thank you. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for finding me. People have to find me. And thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
All the links to connect with Jeanne, Shaniko Wool, and the Responsible Wool Standard are in our show notes at thepowerfulladies.com. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening and leave us a rating and review. Come join us on Instagram at Powerful Ladies. And if you're looking to connect directly with me, visit karaduffy.com or Kara_Duffy on Instagram. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode and new amazing guest. Until then, I hope you're taking on being powerful in your life. Go be awesome and up to something you love.